to Paddlecast with Betsy
and Billy. On Paddlecast, we talk to paddlers who are pushing the limits, paddlers who are pushing their own limits and pushing the limits of paddle sports.
This is a very special episode because it's the first episode of Paddlecast since 2020 and since Chris Parker's retirement from SUP Racer. Chris founded SUP Racer in 2011, and he started Paddlecast during the coronavirus pandemic as a way to bring the SUP community together while everyone was physically far apart. So since then, I, Betsy, have taken over SUP Racer from Chris and will be bringing you stories about amazing paddlers from stand-up paddleboarding, as well as from other paddling disciplines, including canoe and kayak racing. I always think that paddling is more fun with friends. So Billy Butler is joining me as the new co-host of Paddlecast.
Cheers, Betsy. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm quite excited because I like to keep my finger on the pulse of sort of paddle sports worldwide, and this is going to really force me to do it. So it's going to be quite fun. I like marathon kayaking, descent racing, and surfski most really. And so you're going to have to fill me in on the SUP stuff and the canoes, but hopefully I can bring a bit of marathon kayak, surfski, and descent racing into it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I think we have a nice kind of Venn diagram of expertise areas. So we have a lot of paddling disciplines.
I'm not sure about expertise, here. But we do have a Venn diagram of paddle sports.
I'll say enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Of paddle sports enthusiasm with the occasional bit of expertise. So for today's episode, we are going to introduce ourselves to you all who might not know us already. And we're going to chat about some recent races and some upcoming races that each of us were both really interested in or excited about. And we'll talk about, our focus is really pushing the limits, right? So when we say pushing personal limits, maybe that's someone who is training as a full-time athlete and pushing for the best possible performance. Or it could be, someone who might not be a full-time athlete, but they're pushing the limits of what's possible for them or what's possible in the ultra paddling arena.
It won't just be us droning on. We have got some pretty good guests lined up. We've got some guest interviews that are already recorded and they just need to be edited, and we're looking to bring on more in the future as well.
So let's start with the introductions then. So Billy, you mentioned marathon and descent kayaking. What was your journey into kayaking? Where did it start?
My paddling journey started with junior devises to Westminster. And a mate of mine and I just heard about it and thought that it sounded good and tried it, and were just blown away by how amazing it was to push yourself. At junior DW, you're paddling for about 6 hours a day over the Easter weekend in England, and we thought it was the best thing ever. So it really was about ultras from the start, and it wasn't until much later that I evolved into actual marathon paddling. I came back after I was 28. I think I was 28. I was 25. So let's say 25. When actually the truth is that I was 27. I was 27 when I transitioned into actual marathon paddling, and loved it from the start. Putting a bit more speed into the boat. Then a good few years later, I realized I'd become very one-dimensional, and through meeting Dougal Glacier, I got into surfski, and through Tom Diper and Billy Blackman up in Stratford-on-Avon, got into descent racing and absolutely loved it. I mean, I'm not particularly good at either other disciplines, but I'm trying. And the trying is bringing on all all areas of my paddle sports.
So, Billy, I think you're underselling yourself as a paddler a little bit, particularly in the surfski realm. And that's because you have done some really incredible records recently in surfski that I have covered on Paddle Daily. Most recently, paddling across the North Sea.
Yeah, I maybe have undersold some stuff, but yeah, if you put me in the top tier of paddlers, they would, they'd paddle away from me very fast. But no, long distance on the sea, I can do some stuff. So the North Sea record, the Anglesey circumnavigation record, the Isle of Wight circumnavigation record, they're all they're all mine until someone goes and gets them. So if you're listening to that and fancy a challenge, go for it, because it's pretty fun planning it and getting it done.
And we'll look forward to talking about you when you do for the next records that come up.
There might be another one coming in the pipeline. Yeah.
More to come.
More to come. Oh, always more to come. What about you, Betsy? You do a wide variety of paddle sports as well. What's your paddling journey?
I also started as a junior, like you did, but I started in flatwater sprint kayak in Washington, D.C. at the Washington Canoe Club. And I just completely fell in love with paddling there. Believe it or not, when I started paddling, apparently I told my parents that I was non-competitive. Okay. Yeah, that obviously disappeared very quickly. And I became addicted to kayak racing. But then when I went to New York City for university, I found a hard time accessing sprint kayak and ended up picking up outrigger canoeing, which is Polynesian style canoeing. The boats are designed to go very far on the sea. And that was incredible. I really enjoyed learning outrigger canoeing in New York. And then I also ended up picking up marathon canoeing, also called sit and switch canoeing or Canadian canoeing. And that has been really fun as well. It's definitely bigger in the US and Canada, but there is a community that does it here in the UK. And there's a few other countries too. I know Australia has a pretty good scene as well. And then when I moved to London 6 years ago, I was able to get back into the kayak a little bit. So at the moment, you could find me in marathon kayak, sprint kayak, marathon canoe, outrigger canoeing, occasionally surf ski, and maybe sometimes on a SUP.
Do you high kneel as well?
No, I wish, because wouldn't that be awesome? No, I keep alive a great admiration of everyone who does high kneel, and maybe just, a little bit of jealousy.
Yeah, well, yeah, I not something I want to try out unless I was in a really warm country. Well, together we do it all, apart from high kneel C2. Maybe that's what we should start.
Maybe that's the future.
Yeah.
I know some people who could teach us if we asked very, very nicely. That is actually something that I learned, is like feeling like there would be maybe more crossover between different paddling disciplines. But actually it's like, no, each time you really are kind of learning a new sport. And then it's been, at least for me, only later realizing, like, making those connections of, oh, like this is how this concept that I learned in kayaking works in the canoe, or vice versa.
Yeah, definitely. Same with me. And each new discipline you go, actually that fills in a little hole that I didn't have in my knowledge of that one. And then eventually you can make the whole picture.
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, goals for each of us to pick up even more paddling disciplines.
I can get another boat. So looking ahead, should we start with SUP? What's going on in the SUP
Yeah.
world? I do not keep in touch with the SUP world, so you go.
Thank you to our sponsors, Tango Charlie Lights. Tango Charlie offers lightweight lights and brackets that have been purpose-built for paddlers. Tango Charlie was founded because of a close call. Reggie Probst had been paddling K1 and surfski for years when on one early morning paddle in the dark, he was almost run over by a fishing boat because they couldn't see him. He realized that duct taping torches or bike lights to his boat wasn't enough to keep him safe in the dark. So he designed something new. Sleek, lightweight brackets that are easy to put on and take off your boat and stay put while you're paddling. Tango Charlie lights are not boat lights adapted for use on a ski or kayak. They are lights designed and built for paddlers by a paddler. Go to tangocharlielights.com.au to find the right lights for you.
So looking ahead, should we start with SUP? What's going on in the SUP world?
All right. I'm excited to tell you about it. So we are at the start of the season here, right? So we're kind of just coming out of winter, getting into springtime. Last year in SUP was really fun to watch. I particularly enjoyed both of the world championships. So SUP has 2 world championships, double the fun, one run by the Surfing Association and one by the ICF, the Canoeing Federation. Both of them were really great fun to watch and tune into. And some of those top names are on the racing calendar again this year. So the biggest race coming up right now is the Spring SUP Race in Italy. It is the first in the sort of ICF series of races. So it's an ICF accredited event, but it's hosted locally. And it is coming up on the 3rd to the 6th of April. So it's 4 days of racing. And I would say this is probably one of the big international races to kick off the season where we'll see people, mostly Europeans, but coming together to race and start to be able to see how they are kind of stacking up against each other, how much has changed over the last few months since they potentially raced in Florida last November. And we definitely saw that with last year's results. So last year at the Spring SUP Race, some of the names coming out on top there were Cecilia Pampanella from Italy and Katniss Paris from the United States. And then they both went on to have really exceptional races at both at the ISA Worlds and the ICF Worlds for Cecilia Pampanella. And then at the ICF Worlds for Katniss. Katniss won the open women's sprint at the ICF Worlds the first time that the sprint distance was 100 meters. I don't know if they're going to bring that change to kayaking where the 200-meter distance keeps getting...
Is that on the cards, is it?
I don't know. I don't think it's in the cards, but I do think it would be fun. So we'll put that out as a potential idea for the ICF. It's been sad to see less and less of that 200-meter distance, which is really fun to watch. But great to see 100 meters in SUP, and that was fun to watch last year. And Cecilia Pampanella last year, again, really exceptionally good season for her across those major events. And so when we look at who is attending this year. So looking at the signups so far, it looks like we're going to have a lot of the Spaniards coming over to Italy for the race. Spain is one of the, it's more than a hotspot, really. It's like a birthing place of all the young talent.
They dominate marathon kayaking as well, or they don't dominate, but they're right at the top of the tree. So
yeah,
they
that's
love
true.
Water sports, I suppose.
Yeah, Spain is just a good place to be as a paddler. It seems like if you're Spanish and that's not true, tell us otherwise. But looking at sunny Spain from England and the Netherlands. It looks pretty great.
You can see why they get out on the water more, can't you?
Yeah, seriously. So there's a bunch of Spaniards coming over. It looks like Ivan de Frutos Ruiz, Aaron Sanchez, Alexia Soto, Unax Etzeberria, and Elena Etzeberria are all going to be racing. There's probably some more names off that Spanish contingent that I have missed, but those are definitely some of the ones to look out for. And not too far for them to get to Italy from Spain. We've also got Donato Frains coming over from the Netherlands. He finished well in the distance racing last year. He's a bit of a distance specialist and still quite young. A lot of those Spaniards are really young as well, so a lot of up-and-coming names there. And then Csillag Kocsis from Hungary will be there. She had a great season last year where she won the junior women's technical in Denmark at the ISA Worlds. So I think she should be a favorite to do well, particularly in the technical and sprint racing potentially. Suzak Molinaro from Italy will be there. She's definitely really quick. And so it'll be great to see her racing. And then it looks like Andre Crater is signed up too. So that's looking at the sign up list. And you never know, sometimes paddlers change their plans at the last minute. But there's definitely going to be some good racing at that Spring SUP race in Italy.
I have a question about this. What is the difference between the technical race and the other race?
Yeah, great question. So typically SUP has 3 categories of racing. The first one is sprint. So that's easy, right? Yep. Same as sprint kayak. But that distance, again, 100 meters now, new since last year, or 200 meters, but generally short distance sprints, straight line. The next is technical racing. Technical racing, I have to confess, is my favorite to watch. And that is because it has the most drama. So basically you go out there and you pretty much paddle in a zigzag for between maybe like 1 to 3 kilometers roughly. It's not a super long course, but definitely somewhere between a sprint and long distance. And it's literal zigzag. Like you just go out there and like you sprint to the first buoy turn, you turn maybe less than 180, but then you kind of go to the next one, turn again, and you zigzag around the course. People have to approach each turn really strategically. Sometimes, the paddler behind you sticks the nose of their board like between your legs on the back of your board, and you have to figure out how to continue to balance, or like their board knocks you off. It's wild. And there was a lot of drama with it last year.
I saw a video of one of these, I think. And so, yeah, I know what you're talking about now. I didn't know that was a technical race.
Yeah, okay. That's the technical racing. And historically, there's been other types of technical racing too. And there's been technical racing on the sea where you have to like go into the surf, which is probably more similar to surf lifesaving. So yeah, there are different types of technical racing. I think what I've described is the one that we saw most of, at least last season and recently.
Okay.
Yeah, it's cool. And then the third type is long distance, which basically, analogous to marathon kayaking, unless it's on the ocean, in which case analogous to surfski.
And what's that like, 10K, 15K?
It's an interesting question. I am working on actually a SUP Racer analysis of this because it used to be longer, and in recent years, the long distance racing has gotten shorter, so that it has been more like 10 to 15K, when previously it would have been more like 20K or longer.
Okay.
So it's a really... I think it's a tough challenge for the paddlers who are trying to specialize in long distance. And, in marathon kayak, what's the standard long distance there is 30K?
Yeah, well, for senior men, and I don't know what it is for senior women under 23s. I'm not sure, but yeah, 30K for senior men.
Yeah, I know it's
Ish,
around
yeah.
that. Yeah, which is, I think, like a proper long distance, right? I feel like you would get pretty widespread agreement that that's a
Yeah, I mean it's
long.
around a 2 hour race, um, which is decently long, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of this tension between access and, um, I don't know, integrity of the distance, if I were to use a maybe arguably sort of dramatic term for it. But the shorter distances that some of these races have had for long distance, long in quotes, uh, do make it more accessible, right, for someone who's maybe less experienced to go out and do the
Yeah,
race.
yeah, yeah.
But again, flip side, is that really long distance, and is it fair to the people who are trying to specialize in long distance?
Well, I think the best racing at the moment in marathon kayaking is the short course marathons, 3.5K. And so the equivalent in SUP, if they're getting them slightly shorter, I mean, because a 20K SUP race, you're not going to get me watching that. But if there's a short course SUP race like the technical, I could get on board with that.
That's a good point, actually. That I think that short course, the marathon kayak short course, because is that where they've put the portages in there too?
Yeah, it's yeah, two portages. I've only ever raced it twice, and this is 10 years ago, so I can't fully remember. But I think actually the time I did it was the first time it had been included in a World Cup. So uh, yeah, two portages. I mean, it was lovely. I had the portage to myself because everyone was up the course well ahead of me. So it wasn't the carnage that you see on the screen. I just got out, ran, got back in again, easy as you like. But no, but it's when they're at the front end, it's really close racing.
Yeah. I mean, those are really fun to watch, I will say. And it is almost, I wonder if that is almost more analogous to a technical
Yeah,
rather
it probably
than
is. Yeah.
because you've got the kind of getting in and out for the portages.
Yeah,
Very,
I mean,
very
ultimately,
strategy heavy.
a long slog isn't very interesting. A lot of the racing only really gets interesting when you add the features. The turns, the portages, the waves, the weirs, and that sort of thing. You don't want to see people just slogging it out along a long river, unable to really drop anyone or something like that.
Yeah. I enjoyed watching the paddle games format, which is the
Yeah.
racing in Palma where it's head to head. So like two kayakers, sprint kayakers and marathon kayakers would start uh, paddle fast as they can out to the buoy and then turn opposite directions, I think, and then come back to finish.
Yeah.
That's actually the same format they had in the first Euro Tour SUP event. I think that
Okay.
was in January, and they did it in a pool. Yeah,
Yeah.
not an option in for the kayaks, but
No,
that
probably
was
not.
really
No.
fun to watch as well. So yeah, I like that kind of head to head with a turn in the middle. That was good watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there'll be lots to check out at this spring SUP race because they will have those different, sprint and long distance and technical racing going on as well. They've actually got a new type of racing that they are starting to, which is SUP foil sprint racing. So they're going to sprint with a foil. So that's the foils, the kind of
I've
like
seen them. Yeah, yeah,
T-shaped.
yeah. Yeah. That's gonna be pretty wild.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
I see a lot of foiling because it's massively kind of grown in the last few years for SUP. and I've seen a lot of it out, on the sea, in the waves, downwind foiling, which sounds super fun to me. But having it as a sprint race sounds tough.
Yeah, I'm going
Because
to
you've
look
got to
into
get it
that
up.
because, well, yeah, exactly. Like I remember a few years ago, I think did someone invent the flyack, and you were getting kayaks foiling, and I remember someone saying that you needed to be going around 4 minute pace to get it up on the foils, which is achievable by quite a few, but for also quite a few people, you know I am quite happy to say that I can get to 4 minute pace still, but a lot of people can't. So a lot of people wouldn't be able to get a kayak on foils unless they've moved it on and now it's much easier. So for a SUP to foil, that's I'm going to look into that because that must be how many people can get a SUP foiling unless
Yeah.
unless they really have brought it on and it's much easier than I'm expecting it to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we should get a
Yeah. It's a
SUP
great
foiler
question.
on as an interviewer and as an interviewee rather.
I bet we could do that. Let's
Yeah,
uh, let's put that on the list. It's definitely not my area of expertise, but I'm foil curious, as are a lot of people, I think.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm excited to watch all of this for the spring SUP race. What race? I think Billy, there was a recent race that you wanted to talk about today. One that happened maybe a week ago or
Definitely.
so.
The Umkomaas. And I might not be saying that right, but on the Umkomaas River in South Africa, and just the videos, it all came up on my Instagram. Just insane water, just stuff that I couldn't even dream about paddling. And I believe it's labeled as the biggest water that you take racing kayaks down. I did see a few people doing it in wave hoppers, but then I saw plenty of people doing it in proper racing boats, and just it was big. It looked big on the camera, which means it must have been huge. Actually, they had it was a close run thing this year. They had a lot of rain, and they nearly had to put in some shorter distances. They nearly had to restrict the entry. Um, I think they had some extra portages in some places for it, but yeah, huge water, and it looked really fun. And the videos are great because there's top paddlers putting in some pretty wild strokes for being in a racing boat in water like that. It's worth checking out. I suppose we can put a link to the Instagram page on in the show notes. But Hank McGregor won with Wayne Jacobs just ahead of Matthew Fenn and Bradley Ball. And the women's race was run by Hilary Bruss and Kate Frost. So big names. Like it's a serious paddlers doing this race. So I mean that's what got me excited this week. And I think you said you had the videos going through your WhatsApp groups.
Yes, it
Yeah,
it got the video shared. I actually hadn't heard of this race before. I think it's South Africa, right?
yeah,
And
yeah. I
and
mean
that
it's
whole South
yeah,
African scene.
yeah. It's brilliant, isn't it? Like I would love to spend a season out there doing the doozy. I wouldn't be able to do the Uncle Mass. I'd have to sit in the back of a boat with someone because I wouldn't be able to pick a line through that. And, at all, I wouldn't be able to drive.
Yeah, it just looked. Yeah, that video cropped up for me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I mean, serious, serious, like whitewater. But as you say, right, it's people are not taking whitewater kayaks down this; they're taking racing
They're taking
boats.
racing boats. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it does, I think it does break boats. There was some big names that didn't finish because of boat problem or were seriously limited because of boat problems. But if you watch the videos, you'll see why. I wouldn't be able to get a boat down there. So yeah, that's the best thing in descent racing this week.
That just looked phenomenal. And I mean, it's not, I think for anyone who's not as familiar with descent racing too, the names at the top of that list and the results, these are multidisciplinary paddlers as
Yeah.
well, right?
Yeah, I mean, Hank can, if you don't know who Hank is, then where have you been? But Hank and Matt Fenn, they can race a marathon boat, and I apologize to the other guys that were on that list. Hank can get in a surf ski, get in a descent boat, get in a marathon boat, and make it go. And so can Matt Fenn. Yeah, it's I can't do it. I really notice the difference when I get in each boat. The descent boat, not so much, but I know if I've been in the surf ski too much, my marathon boat doesn't move, and then if I've also been in the marathon boat too much, my surf ski feels wild, and I get in the waves, and I'm just like, whoa, this boat's moving a lot. Get me back on that marathon boat on the flat water. So I'm really curious to know, really how they do it, and it's amazing.
Yeah. It just the skill set to be able to toggle between the boats like that and the different water conditions, plus just like the sheer intensity of what those conditions on the UMCO looked like on its own,
But I
even if all
suppose
you
if
did
you've
was
grown up
descent
doing
racing.
it, yeah, descent racing for me is a nice bit of fast flowing river weir and then fast flowing river, not continuous rapids, relentless rapids with nothing, with no rest in between, which it looks like this race is.
It looked incredible though. I was happy to get that race on my radar.
Yeah, I'll be looking at it next year, but of course next year it might not rain, it might be a dead boring race.
True, good point. That is the downside of the downriver and descent racing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look at the Liffey. How many years ago was it the Liffey was absolutely dry, and they changed it to May. They've changed it back again now. It's in September again.
Yeah, yeah.
So
The
we'll
Liffey in
see.
Ireland, iconic descent race. Yeah, and you
I
raced it
forget.
last
We're
year, right?
gonna. I raced it. I'm glad you mentioned it, Betsy. Yeah, I did. I did. God, where did I come? I was second, wasn't I? Yeah, I was. I mean, that is, one of my best ever results. We were delighted, and we were actually behind a South African pair, um, Clint Cook and Josh Simpkins, and they're world class. So we couldn't have beaten them. We did the best race we possibly could. We were made up, and there was a large amount of luck involved. We got down some weirs pretty clean, and the boat did a huge amount of the work with some of my lines going down some of those weirs, like hit some huge rocks, and you go whoops, and this boat just took it, and you go, oh, thank God for that, and and we got down. Yeah, we didn't get down dry. We did take a swim, but
That race has been on my wanting to race list for a long time. But
get it done.
yeah,
Get it. It's
that
worth
was a
it.
great
I've
result.
only I've only done
Yeah,
two, and they've both been brilliant days out. Yeah, get a
that's
nice
great.
stable boat.
Well, let's talk about one more race that's coming up soon, and I say let's talk about it as if we haven't been talking about it constantly already for
Off
weeks,
camera. Yeah.
not in the recording studio.
Thank you for Tango Charlie Lights for sponsoring this episode. I'm particularly happy about this because I love the product. I use my Tango Charlie Lights day to day whenever I'm paddling in the dark. Most of my paddling is in a busy shipping lane, so it's vitally important that I'm seen. I've also used them on big adventures that I've done around Anglesey and across the North Sea. On both occasions, I started in the dark. I used the green and red navigation lights on the back, and I used the big front light to allow me to see any waves. The favorite part of Tango Charlie lights for me is they have a variety of options to suit every application, and they suit every type of boat that I have, surf skis and K1s. If you want to learn more about the lights and other accessories that Tango Charlie has, go to tangocharlielights.com.au.
So you actually mentioned the DW when you were doing your introduction because it's how you started paddling, right?
This is how I started. So when you mention our Venn diagram of paddle sports, and we've got some expertise, if we do have it anywhere, it's on Devices to Westminster. So, so it's the DW or the Devices to Westminster. It's in England from Devices to Westminster. I think it's labelled as the Everest of canoeing, of canoe races. And at one point, it was the longest non-stop. I don't know if that's still true.
It's one of the longest non-stop
longest
races.
non-stop races in the world.
Yeah,
so
125
it's 125
miles.
Yeah, 200k. You get a wide variety of boats, but mostly it's racing boats. But there's also some folding kayaks. There's canoes, and they are allowing SUPs to race this year for the first time ever. So that's going to be really interesting. They're doing a slightly shortened course, aren't they? And is it a stage? It's a stage race.
So the race has been running since 1948 with just a few exceptions. So yeah, more than 70 occurrences.
70 editions. Yeah.
70 editions.
And it's a really good race. It starts on the canal, and a really narrow little shallow canal, and you end up on the River Thames in central London. So you have to pick your boat right, and you've got to be good on the canal. You've got to be good at portaging. Is there 77 portages, 76 portages?
It's 77 portages, but yeah, in 2023, I remember we had to do 78 because they added another one.
Because of Windsor.
Because the water was so high.
Yeah, you have to go around the weir at Windsor because it's deadly. Whereas the other ones, you just get really wet, and you would get spat out. The one at Windsor, you don't get spat out of. So an extra portage. It's Easter, and so it's coming up, and we've got the warm-up races going on in the UK now, the Waterside Series and the Thameside Series, which you've been writing about on Paddle Daily. And it's hotting up with the top crews all vying for form.
So I think we're gonna do a little deeper dive into DW in another episode. But let's just do a short preview for, let's say, maybe someone who hasn't been following along every single play-by-play bit of the action like we have. Who are the top crews who we think could potentially win? So the K2 senior doubles is the name of the class that's the most competitive class in DW. There's a lot of other classes, but that's the one we'll focus on for now because it's kind of the most.
Yeah, the main race. It's the one that everyone really cares about, and really interestingly, mixed crews have become really popular, and I think we've had 2 incidences of mixed crews winning, and there's been a few incidences of mixed crews podiuming, but it's there at the top of the tree. We've got, is there four top crews this year?
There's 4 top crews this year. Yeah, and it's 3 instances of mixed crews winning. I think Tom and Nishi's win last year was the 3rd instance. Keith and Lizzie, Alex Lane and Dan Seaford. And then last year was the 3rd time ever in the DW's history. Yeah, I did a bit of a deep dive into this. Maybe I can link that article as well. I think it was when I was introducing Tom and Nishi as competitors before last year's DW. Yeah. But one of the, I'll say fun fact, and I'm not sure how fun this fun fact is, but because the DW has been going since 1948. The women's and the mixed categories were actually not even created until 1975. And there was a long time where women were not allowed to race.
They didn't allow women to do it, did they? No.
Yeah, but there were some stories of women who, I think, put their hair up in their hats and raced anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, which, needs to be done, doesn't it?
Yep. I'm just, I'm looking at the records on this. It was Anne Mary Evans, who was later Anne Mary Booth, and Jonathan Hutt. And that was in 1973.
Wow.
And she was entered. So her name, the records say, is Anne Mary, but she was entered as Amory. So Amery. And she and Jonathan were only 18 at the time when they did that. No, it took them 49 hours and 57 minutes to do the race. Yeah, which is brutal.
That's a long time. One of the, when I was a junior, we weren't particularly good. And then we talked about the senior race, and I said to someone I went to school with, I'd never do the senior race unless I could do it in under 20 hours. And he laughed at me, he said, well, you'll never do it then, but it's sort of true. Like, you sort of think under 20 hours, it's not too bad, but spending that amount of time in the boat is brutal. And I'm really happy that I can get down the course fast, because when I see the state of people who do take that long, for whatever reason, they're in folding boats, they're in, slower boats. They don't sacrifice as much time as I do to canoeing. Maybe they've actually got a family that they see. I I just take my hat off to them. Like, anyone who takes that long, they're putting their body through some serious pain. And I'm just so happy to get off the water quite quickly in relative terms, because I'm not brave enough to put myself there at the moment. It's committing to something that's going to take over 24 hours is just, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And how long, just to give a rough idea, so you had to finish at Teddington last year with everyone else because the race ended up getting cut short related to the Port of London Authority restricting the race's ability to run for the last, 20K or something?
Yeah.
Down to Westminster.
So what did I do? Did we did something like 16:09, and the winners, Tom and Nushi, did it in something like 15 3/4 hours? Something like that?
Let's see, for last year, because that was to Teddington. I was going to ask about your time to Westminster in 2023 when you had a Westminster finish.
The average winning time is probably about 17 hours. Might be slightly more. It might be 17:10 as a proper average, but around 17:10 is pretty typical. But it can vary. The record is 15:18, something like that. And you can also win it. I think the slowest winning time is something like 18 hours. And that I think that was in a brutal year. I want to say 18 hours, 20 minutes. And I think that was Jim Morrissey and Mick O'Meara in a brutal year. There was something like only 20 finishes total, and only 4 of them were under 20 hours. And this has been described by John Morrissey to me. And, the Morrissey brothers in Ireland and Mick O'Meara are tough paddlers. They really know what they're talking about. And they've described the conditions of race day, and you're just like, no, I don't want to be anywhere near that.
That is rough. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
very grateful to have a fast flowing river in 2023, the year that I did it, that we both did it. Yeah,
Yeah.
separately
Yeah.
and at different
The
speeds.
faster, the better, really. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the record. So Keith Moll and Tom Sharp finally set a new official record in 2023, the year that I raced DW and Billy raced that year too. So that was 15 hours, 19 minutes, and 35 seconds. And that was the first new official record since 1979. So that was a big deal when they broke that record. I don't know that this is going to be a record breaking year because it's a later Easter. So we usually see
Well,
not quite as much.
the unofficial record's late Easter.
Okay, that's a good point. So we could end up with some rain.
I think we've had some nice weather, and the trees are starting to wake up, and it's not rained a huge amount. I'm guessing a low year. Not a low year. It might be, I don't know. But I don't think it's going to be a particularly fast year.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that there won't be any action to watch. So okay, so let's get back to these top contenders.
Tom and Nushi are the current champions, and they're very good. They are serious. Like, I don't know Nushi's full sort of results history, but I know Tom's off the top of my head, and he's raced the K1 once and won it. He's raced the K2 senior twice and won it, breaking the record in one instance. And if the race hadn't have been cut short, they would have broken the mixed record as well. So they're a good crew. They're really good. We've also got Joe Peterson and Brindy Kreft, who are some seriously good paddlers. Brindy's not done the race before. Joe has. Joe did it in 2023. Joe has got proper international pedigree. Brindy has not raced internationally yet, but I would not rule it out for in the next couple of years. She's got really good surf ski background.
She's a long distance
Yeah,
specialist. She's done the Cape Point Challenge in South Africa and surfski a few times. I think she
yeah.
won it last year in the double.
The
And that's
mixed
like a
double.
5 or
Did she win
six
the
hour
mixed double?
race.
Yeah.
I think that's right. And she also came sixth overall at the Surfski World Championships in Madeira, Portugal.
Yeah.
So that's her. I think her international racing is mainly surfski.
I think she got a pretty good result at the Liffey last year as well.
That's a great question. Yeah.
I think she did. I mean, she's a top paddler, and
Yeah.
as far as we know, and as far as she knows, the longer it gets, the better she gets. But she's in the dark after 6 hours, so that will be very interesting. And
Yeah.
then possibly the favourites. For some people, the favourites, but for others, they're not the favourites. Are Andy Burkett and Tom Simmons. Andy Burkett is an animal. I raced him in 2022 and I gave it everything. And Andy and his partner, Mike Laverack, just took it. And Dan Palmer and I could not beat them. We really tried. We really tried. And they matched it. So Andy's really good. Andy's got a senior win. Tom Simmons has not got a senior finish in K1 or K2, so he's a bit of an unknown and possibly the question mark in that crew. So if it wasn't for that, they'd be the clear favourites. They're flying, they're going really fast in the warm-up races. So we'll wait to see that. And then the outsiders bet would be David Hawken and Dan Palmer, who there'll be some sea kayakers that will know David Hawken. He's a very good paddler. They got second in 2023. Him and Evan, and I am sorry, Evan, but I've forgotten your surname. Dan Palmer has got, a lot of DWs under his belt. He's won the junior. He has got a second place in the senior doubles. He's won the mixed. That's a serious crew. I just don't think they've quite got the speed to match the other crews, but I wouldn't bet against them getting on the podium. And I think that rounds out the favorites of DW.
It does. Yeah. I'm just, so that was Evan O'Keefe and David Horkin.
That's the one. Yeah.
Finished second in 2023. They were actually more than an hour behind Keith Mole and Tom Sharp. But Keith and Tom were setting a record that year.
Yeah.
And then only 10 minutes behind David Horkin and Evan O'Keefe was Dan Palmer and Kat Wilson, formerly Burbeck. So that was so David and Dan had second place and third place each in 2023, and now they're teaming up together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a good crew. I just don't think they've got the speed to match the other crews, but they've definitely got the endurance.
Dan is based in Cornwall and David is based in Ireland. Right?
That's the other issue, isn't it? Yeah, they're not getting huge amounts of time in the boat, so they might have some mistakes. But then other crews.
But they're both experienced in the race, right? Which is
exactly yeah. I wouldn't rule them out. I just, in my opinion, there's not going to be an issue with every other crew, and I think David and Dan need the other crews to have an issue or a slump in the middle of the night.
Yeah, to make that podium.
Yeah, but watch what David and Dan do below Reading, below the halfway point. I think they'll be storming up the standings.
Yeah, can't wait.
It'll be good.
It's going to be, a 4-boat race like this is, and some of these boats are going to be really tight. Last year was really, really fun to watch.
No, it wasn't.
Sorry, Billy, you were. I had fun watching you paddle.
Good.
You might not have been having as much fun.
No, it wasn't. No. But that happens, doesn't it?
Yep. And you guys finished the race. Came second. Really good finish.
Second. Yeah, we were happy. John had never done the race before. It was hard work. We made some mistakes, and unfortunately it meant that we stopped the race. The race ended earlier than it should have done, in terms of our race. And ultimately, it meant that Tom and Nishi could waltz down the course. So you know what, they haven't been pushed yet. We don't know what they can do when they get really pushed.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I think it's going to be tight for a lot of the race. So
yeah,
there'll be some great action.
DW's it's a hard race to get right, and I think I've done 4 senior races, and I'd say that only 2 of them have been mistake free. Arguably, maybe only one of them mistake free. So it is hard to do.
Yeah, I think, and that's like when I've only done 3 or 4 like ultra distance races, and I didn't feel. I think it was the third one that I did that I felt like I was starting to get a hang of it.
Yeah,
because it's just like that ultra. Being really good at ultra paddling, and DW in particular, because it is so, you've got the canal, you've got the river, you've got all of these portages. Like there's so many things that you could get wrong.
It's dark very early in the race. And for these top crews this year, they're going to be, 2.5 hours into the race, and then it's going to be dark. There might be slightly more. It might be, but I think when I looked at it by Hungerford, which is the second checkpoint, it's going to be dark. And it's a very dark section of the country. There's no ambient light until you get to sort of Windsor area, maybe a bit around Reading. It's pretty dark at Reading. And the other issue is the moon doesn't come out until something like 2 a.m. So it's going to be a dark race. And, if it's muddy, it's hard work. Mistakes creep in.
Thank you to everyone who tuned in for our first episode. We are really excited to keep talking paddling with you all. And we would love your feedback. So leave some comments on the podcast wherever you are listening or watching. And see you on the water.
If we've offended anyone, get it in the comments and we'll correct ourselves.
Or send us a message, maybe. Maybe don't put those bits in the comments.
Thanks, everyone. See you on the water.
Thank you so much for listening to Paddlecast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, subscribe, share it with your friends, your family. This is your excuse to talk about paddling even more than you already do. We would also really appreciate it if you could leave a review. We really hope that you enjoyed this episode because we enjoyed making it. And a final thank you again to our sponsor, Tango Charlie Lights. If you are a brand who's interested in reaching an audience of awesome paddling enthusiasts, please send me an email, Betsy@supracer.com. See you on the water.